Good evening. Welcome to the James Room. I'm your host, James Hart, and tonight I'll be talking to you about the rubber tyre industry. More specifically, I'll go into detail about the supply chain, the information systems used, and also the coming issues they face in the next decade. So, supply chain, what does it look like? Rubber tyres begin in the ground. The materials are extrapolated up, and then they are melted and cooled through a process. Now there's approximately 30 ingredients in this, and you use whichever ingredients depending on what type of tyre you want to make. But either way, after this process, it's then cut into strips. After you cut a rubber tyre into strips, and you then give it its circular shape, right? And then you also, lastly, you send it to the curing process. So the curing process is a final process in the build. That's what gives a tyre its grooves, and it also gives it writing on the wall. And the tyre's done. After the tyre is complete, it's then sent to distributors. Now, whether the company wishes to outsource this part of the process or not is up to them. But either way, rubber tyres are usually sent by boat or truck. It kind of depends on where it's going, right? Or it has been known to be sent by planes, but I can't imagine many companies doing that because it has a very low value to weight ratio. So a company will really maximize profits not using an airplane, because they're very big and they're very heavy, and they're not that expensive to justify flying them. You'd much prefer to use a boat or a truck to move tyres. So after that, after it gets to the distribution centres or the shops, the wholesalers, it's then sold to the consumer. The consumer then uses a tyre over its useful life, however long that may be. It's then sent to a waste facility, which is a bad idea because it's just sent to a landfill or something. Or we can recycle a tyre. Now, when you recycle a tyre, actually you can get some pretty neat stuff. One, you make a closed loop supply chain, which is perfect for the rubber tyre industry, because you're actually using the product more than if you would if you just wasted the product. So when you recycle a rubber tyre, you can either burn it for energy, or you can make it into things like roads and so forth, which is actually far better than using something like bitumen, because bitumen is just making a whole new product, which is bad for the environment. It costs money, it's all sorts of things. But if you can reuse a rubber tyre, that's a fantastic idea, right? Nextly, the information systems. Now, a rubber tyre, a rubber tyre has codes around the side of it, which no one knows what they mean, but the distributors know what it means. It will tell the distributor the weight, radius, load carrying capacity, and also the speed rating. Stephen Hoy released an article that describes Michelin's use of the just-in-time system. The just-in-time system is a logistics system that basically minimizes the amount of time a product spends in transit, or it attempts to minimize the amount of time a product spends in transit. The transit being from the producer to the consumer, right? It's the whole logistic process. So if you go under the assumption that every company is a profit-maximizing company, then every company is going to want to limit their supply chain and make it as small as possible, or incur as little fees and as little money on the logistics side of it as they possibly can. The just-in-time system is perfect for this, because that's what it was designed for. It was designed to delete lead times. It was designed to do a bunch of stuff that basically makes it much cheaper for the producer to get their product to their consumer. SKUs make tyres trackable in transit. SKUs are stock keeping units. It's also worth mentioning actually that tyres aren't packaged. Tyres, when they're in transit, they just sit like this. They don't get boxed, they don't get anything. So the stock keeping unit is actually just taped onto a kind of barcode, and that makes it trackable during transit, and it kind of just makes the whole process easier. Future issues of the tyre industry. The tyre industry has to get better at forecasting sales, because right now tyres are spending too much time in transit, and tyres are very big and heavy. It's not the most productive way of doing it. But if you can forecast sales better, you can actually minimize the amount of time it spends to get straight to the consumer, right? It'd be perfect. So according to Russell, who did an industry survey, 30% of people said that market segmentation is key to minimizing the time in transit. But arguably the biggest problem with the rubber tyre industry is waste. This can be seen from space. This is a massive mound of rubber tyres, and they're doing nothing. They're just sitting there being wasteful. Now, In response to this, Michelin has made closed-loop supply chain that looks something like this. And this supply chain has been praised by the WWF or the Worldwide Fund for Nature as being the best closed-loop supply chain in the market at the moment. So going forward, we urge that all companies take on a supply chain that looks something like this and do a bit more recycling. However, that is a general idea of what the rubber tyre industry looks like. I hope you enjoyed listening and you found this educational. Thank you.